All right, are we recording?
I think we are on. The red light is on.
The red light is on. So once again, this is podcast number 2. We are coming from you deep in a bunker under Costa Rica, the jungles.
Yes.
And,
so if you hear bombing, then you'll know.
Oh, we're going to be bombing, all right.
Yeah. Like that joke. That's the first bomb of the show.
So hopefully we learned a little bit from the first podcast, so we're kind of moving forward here. And so, is that better?
Yep.
I think we're better now.
Yep.
Okay. And so today's podcast, and again, we're just kind of shooting all over the place. Hopefully we we'll kind of dial it in the future. But this podcast, our plan is to come up with a maybe top 10 list of movies. And when I say maybe is, Doug picked 5, I picked 5.
And we don't know what each other's 5 are.
That's correct. So I have no idea what he picked.
Yeah.
And he has no idea what I picked.
But this is the top. We each chose 5 from the 70s.
The 70s.
So that was the parameter, yeah.
Yeah. Had to be from the 70s. So again, when we're coming up with ideas for these podcasts, we just kind of throw stuff out and see what kind of strike. Yeah. So again, at first I was like, yeah, we'll do 5 movies from the 70s. And I just want to make sure, I'm not too sure everybody's aware of this, but there was a shitload of movies in the 70s.
There was.
There was a lot. Yeah. And so it was hard to kind of whittle it down to 5.
So let me ask you this: How did you first, before we do our numbers? What did you use for criteria?
Oh, I was going to ask you the same question. Okay. So because again, for all of you out there that are probably wondering how to do this, because just go ahead and get ready to take notes because here it comes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I googled top movies of the 70s, and of course you get and there's tons of them. They're all they kind of vary, but. Like number 1 is always like The Godfather. Apocalypse Now is always on there, and so forth. And no denying those are good movies, right? They're great movies, but that's not what I did. It wasn't really, I really wasn't thinking about cinematography or like, even though I did think that for the movies I picked, like direction was interesting in the soundtrack. But what if my wife and I are sitting around like on a rainy Sunday morning. And she says, I feel like watching a movie. This would be a movie that I would pull out and watch. Okay.
So one of the go-tos.
One of the go-tos, and send all the hate mail you want, but that's never going to be The Godfather. It's just not. Great movie. Mm-hmm. Godfather 2, both movies from the 70s.
That's my number 1, man. Why would you go and do that?
We're going to get to that in a bit.
That's not my number 1.
Yeah, so it's mine. Okay. No, but the other thing is movies, and this was an important point because there were movies that I like a lot now, but they didn't make it on the top 5 for this reason, is I watched them in the 70s, and at that time, they had a significant impact on me as a kid.
Right.
Like, I watched them, and I was like, either they scared me or made me laugh,
right, or,
I just was just blown away by them at the time I watched them. And again, I felt personally that they do kind of have to kind of stand the test of time.
Okay, so personal influence, essentially, to you.
Yes.
That's kind of like your biggest factor.
Big time. Because there's great movie. And I'm going to go and give something away here, okay?
Oh,
okay.
Man.
Jaws is not on my list, even though I think it's a great movie of the 70s. Mm-hmm. If you picked it as my number 1, I apologize. Mm-hmm. But it's not on my list, and I do think it's an amazing movie. Mm-hmm. But the thing about it is I didn't watch Jaws until the 80s.
Oh, okay.
So it was a movie that I didn't get a chance to watch.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay. Yeah. What did you do?
Yeah, it was similar. But for people who don't know, I have a degree in filmmaking, and so I can't ever escape the technical stuff. Like when I'm watching movies or watching TV, I have a great admiration for high levels of technical stuff, and that includes storytelling, that includes like direction, that includes lighting, things like that. So that includes all of that. So it's this weird amalgamation for me in terms of technical stuff as well as impact, like you're saying, things that had a big impact on me. So that was kind of my criteria.
Okay.
All right. So number 5, go. What's your number 5?
Okay, number 5. Oh, first,
we predicted each other's number 1.
Right, and we just had a little bit of a mini debate about should we do it now or should we do it right before number 1. I kind of want to do it now only because if I hit a movie that's on your top 5. I'm going to be like, cool, but I don't want to hit it after you've already given it to me.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
So,
yeah.
All right, so I think you're number 1, and we're not going to, don't acknowledge if I'm right or wrong. Okay?
Oh, shit, that's going to be hard.
Yeah, I know it is. Just get ready. I think your number 1 is Dirty Harry.
Okay.
What do you think my number one is?
I'm trying to poker face it right now. I'm thinking that your number one was Smoking the Bandit.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. All right.
All right. So now, from there, what's your number 5?
Number 5, and again, to be clear, we're also gonna do honorable mentions.
Oh yeah, tons of honorable mentions.
Yeah, tons of honorable mentions before we give our number 1. Yeah. And with that said, most of my honorable mentions could probably go into number 5.
Yeah,
except
same
for
here.
Jaws for
Same
whatever
here.
reason. But
Yeah.
number 5 for me, Young Frankenstein.
Oh, so close.
Yeah.
So close. I got Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Oh yeah,
As my number 5.
I was actually going to pick that as your number 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
So,
it's
but
a pretty good movie.
yeah, they're both. And again, this is interesting because Doug and I do have tendencies to kind of disagree on things.
Yeah.
We do, not all the time. We see eye to eye on a lot of stuff, but I have a feeling we're probably going to have a lot of things that come together.
Yep.
And that's obviously in my honorable mentions.
Yes.
But yeah, Young Frankenstein, 1974, and I did make notes.
Love that movie.
It is a great movie, and one of the reasons I think, again, the impact it had on me was it was the first time I ever saw a comedy that wasn't like juvenile comedy that you would see like on
more sophisticated.
Yeah, it's but still like very broad and funny.
Well, they did a great job of mixing that sophisticated adult kind of humor with some of that slapstick stuff.
Right, smart, stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and it's funny because written by and there's all kinds of stories about it. I know that there's a lot of times that there's a lot of situations where it was written by Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks who got directing credit, but I get the idea that Gene Wilder definitely had a lot of influence on the way things played out. But it's funny because I am DBing for this, and Mel Brooks again. You get this, this whole sense of humor. He's listed as a star. He has an acting credit as cat hit by dart.
Nice. That's good.
That's awesome.
It's funny.
I remember that scene.
That's one of the movies that when I'm flying internationally, whatever, I get a long haul flight and I'm scrolling through the movies. If that's on there, I'll almost always watch it.
Right.
And they never have Monty Python on there, but sometimes they do have that. So
and it's definitely a go back to. Right. Like
no doubt.
Like I'll go back to that one and multiple favorite scenes in that movie. But
it's Frankenstein.
Frankenstein or whatever. Frankenstein or whatever.
Yeah.
And I loved when they sing "Putting on the Ritz." I thought that was amazing.
Was my worst. That was the worst part of the movie for me.
Really? Yes. There you go. But
I like lots of other stuff.
I just like the fact that they're just kind of like screw it, and they went with it. But probably my all-time favorite scene in there is when Gene Wilder goes, "I'm going to go in there, no matter go in there." Try to communicate with the monster. Whatever you do
not open this door.
Do not open the door. And he walks in the door, and the monster's like, ugh. And
open the door.
All right, he goes, open this door. I'll kick your rotten heads in.
That's funny.
Okay.
I like the scene when they're spinning on the wall. They move the candle.
Oh,
put the candle back.
I know. I love it. I put an abnormal brain in the
yes,
monster.
I said Abby normal.
Anyway,
so that's a ton of one-liners in that.
Oh, beautiful.
And I picked Monty Python for similar reasons. I mean, quotable. Like every single scene in that movie has quotable stuff. Every single scene, about the witch and the coconuts and the African swallow, and on and on and on. Yeah, that's one. That's probably one of the most quotable movies of all time, next to Dumb and Dumber. In my world, anyway.
Well, the thing about Monty Python and the Holy Grail is nowadays I almost think it's kind of expected for people to kind of move towards film, And back then, now it's almost and I'm not comparing it to the Beatles, you know what I mean, but only because I'm not a fan of I'm not a huge fan of the Beatles. Sorry,
yeah.
But with that said, they were kind of they were just doing kind of this television, this not variety, but like a comedy show that was kind of
stuff,
skit television, and then they make this movie, and you're just kind of like, kind of unexpected.
Yeah.
But God, it's such a funny movie.
And the thing I liked about it is that, and they did this with, it's very similar to what Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks did. They took this topic that in my life, up until that point, I always took really seriously, ooh, this is the Holy Grail, and this is like folklore, you know what I mean? Like serious English stuff. And they totally make fun of it. These, pretending to ride a horse and cracking coconuts together. It was freaking hilarious in my mind, anyway.
And a lot of that stuff, I think, even like the end scene where they you know, they arrested by the police.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all that was, even though it was hilarious, and the coconuts, budget constraints.
Yeah.
They couldn't get horses.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. So my number 4 is probably going to shock you. I don't think you're ready for this one.
Go for it.
Grease.
Really?
Yes.
Now, I will tell you, I think we're probably going to have a couple movies that you're going to be like,
way off the mark, yeah.
Yeah. But, okay, go for it. Why?
Okay, so Grease, the personal impact was the major factor here,
Okay.
right? I don't like musicals.
Right.
I liked John Travolta a lot during that era, and I liked Olivia Newton-John. Obviously, had a big crush on her.
Who did?
But, but to me, that was the first... when I was a kid, my mom dragged me to musicals. You know, gosh, she liked them all, Annie Hall and all that stuff. You know, and Fiddler on the Roof was it's a running joke in my family.
Annie Hall wasn't a musical though.
What was the one I'm thinking of? Not Annie Hall.
Maybe Annie.
No. Anyway, regardless, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're 100%. Oklahoma, is that?
Oklahoma's definitely a musical.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, probably. Anyway, so, we go to see this, and I was a big fan of Happy Days at the time, and the Fonz and all that, and it just swept me away. It was just one of these movies where, that suspension of disbelief was complete. I was in the movie the whole time, and I liked the balance between the good guys and the bad guys, that really stereotypical white car for the good guys, black car for the bad guys, the leather jackets, all of that. And it was, you look back at it now, it's pretty cheesy, but at the time, I was all in.
I will tell you nothing about Grease is definitely a movie that would never get made today.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
most of these probably.
Probably so. Well, definitely. I tell you what, my number 3 is one that would never get made today for sure. But
well, you got to tell me number 4. What's number 4?
I'm going to go there. Yeah, but the thing about Grease is, she can't. I love it. And again, I'm a little bit surprised, but I'm also a fan. I would not. I can if that was on and Melanie was watching it.
Yeah, we watch it.
Yeah, if my wife was watching that, I would roll right in.
Channel,
yeah, but she's trying to win his affection, and so what does she do? Yeah. She whores it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like,
well, then because she's watching Rizzo and she gets the abortion and all that stuff.
I know.
It's like, wow, that was dramatic for the day.
I know. But again, Olivia Newton-John, wow.
Yeah, gorgeous. Yeah, I always had a big crush on her.
Big time. Number 4. Yeah. Okay, is The Omega Man from 1971.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Okay,
I dig it.
And again, this one definitely because of the way it affected me when we watched it. Again, you got Charlton Heston. You got Rosalind Cash played the love interest.
Well, Charlton Heston was a god in the 70s.
He was.
It was everything that guy touched.
Yeah, and when we get to honorable mentions, there was kind of this like science fiction trifecta.
Yeah.
And definitely, and again, Planet of the Apes could have gone on this list too.
Yeah,
it didn't,
easily.
But because I had to pick one. I wanted to pick one, right?
Exactly.
So, but there's like, I guess it's like, what is it? The guy that plays Matthias, he was a great character actor. His name was Anthony Zerbe or Zerb. I don't know how I pronounced it. Other stuff, right? Okay. But the one thing that for one, it was the first time I'd ever been exposed to anything that was kind of post-apocalyptic. It's, it's based on the I Am Legend book by what's his guy's name? Freaking, Richard Matheson. And, and of course they did the Will Smith remake, which is kind of okay, I guess. But yeah, it scared me and it's still to this day, the music, the soundtrack is one of the most amazing soundtracks. Again, I looked it up. It was written by a guy named Max Steiner. And when I looked at his IMDb page, he had I want to say 408 or 308 film credits.
Wow.
All the way back to 1928.
Wow.
But I know it's
that's crazy.
It's crazy. And so and the orchestra that played it is the same orchestra that does the title music for the new Doctor Who. Same guy.
Okay.
Kind of cool. Yeah. But God, the music was creepy. And I remember there were just scenes in there that it was probably the first time I'd ever watched a movie. There was a scene in there that not in a gory way, but it turned my stomach as a kid. And I remember that, and I was like, and so again, same thing. If it's a Saturday morning, and I own it, so I could go back and watch it.
You'll watch it anytime,
anytime.
It's interesting because I never saw that movie in the 70s when I was a kid. I only saw it later as an adult, and I don't have that. A lot of times when movies like that come out, they're so cutting edge for the time that they shock you in some way, and that I didn't see that. I didn't get to experience that, but it was a cool ass movie.
It is.
I liked it. Yeah.
Yeah, and just a real quick description on the stomach turning scene. I wasn't going to talk about it, but it's worth mentioning. I don't want spoiler alert. It came out in 1971. Anyway, With that said, is that the whole thing is very similar. If you've seen Will Smith, it's kind of similar in that. But with this, instead of turning into like these vampires, the individuals turning into like these pseudo albino zombies, right? And they've got like white eyes. And there was a scene at the end where he was waiting for for the female character, her name was Lisa in the movie, to come home, and people sometimes they would turn immediately, sometimes it would take a lot longer, and she was walking down the street, and the Matthias in this movie would do this kind of creepy, like he would call people's names, so he was calling out for Lisa, and the sun was setting, and that's when things got dangerous, and then. As he's calling her name, she stops. She's carrying like some bags with food in it, and she drops the bag. And she's wearing sunglasses. And she pulls the sunglasses off, and her eyes were white. And I just remember being like, as like a 8-year-old, I remember being like, that's the most fucked up thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, that's not freaking Herbie the Love Bug anymore. Okay,
right, exactly. Which is what we were watching at the time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So anyway.
It's funny. Right. I had that reaction. It's nowhere on my list, but I had that reaction to Helter Skelter.
Oh, I bet.
I wanted to watch Helter Skelter. My mom wouldn't let me, made me go to bed or whatever. And I literally snuck out of my room and like peeking my head around the corner. And this was, by today's standards, just nothing. Right. But there was a scene where the cops were investigating this car where a murder had taken place, and the car was all bloody and stuff. I was maybe like 9 years old or something, and I'd like, that freaked me out, man. It was like the first time I was watching cartoons before that. It's the first time I'd seen anything like that. So it was, it was shocking. But
I remember when Helter Skelter, because that was made for TV, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. So what's your number 3?
Number 3. Okay, ready for this one?
Yep, I'm ready.
High Plains Drifter.
Oh, it's great.
That's a great movie. 1973, Clint Eastwood.
Yep.
A bunch of stars that nobody's ever heard of. A couple guys, a lot of character actors.
Yep.
But directed by Clint Eastwood.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was his first Western that he directed, if I'm not mistaken. I think so.
Probably.
Because he became famous through the late 60s with the spaghetti Western, and then so he said, let me take a crack at it. And he got that character with, you never knew his name,
right?
And all that stuff. So.
Right. Well, and I mean, he kind of pseudo-directed, or pseudo, that's not fair. He shared directing duties with Outlaw Josie Wales. Again, had to pick a Western.
Yep.
Had to pick Clint Eastwood Western. Outlaw Josie Wales could definitely be on this list too.
Definitely.
It's in the honorable mentions.
Yep.
But for one, I mean, that movie to me, by the way, music also amazing. I looked that up. That's somebody named Dee Barton did the soundtrack for that. And but again, not a whole lot else going on. Did a lot of Clint Eastwood stuff.
Right.
But that's about it. But I liked it. Again, had seen Westerns. I'd never seen a Western like this. But to me, it's just a like descent into madness, like wrapped in a Western, and it's got a lot of like even very vague horror elements, and it kind of shows but doesn't tell. You know what I mean? So everything that I kind of like about that, and also the hero, again, spoiler alert, and also probably for what it's worth, trigger warning, like in the first 10 minutes. Like he rapes a woman, right? He rapes, the hero rapes this woman. So another movie that'll never get made today.
Right.
And it's just kind of like,
but it's character development for him, right? It kind of shows you what he's all about.
And I was even going to say, because last podcast we talked a little bit about the hero's journey. No hero's journey.
Yeah, no.
He, and again, I don't want to get into it too much because I would like, if you haven't seen it, you need to see it. Because it's just an amazing movie.
Oh, that's a great film.
It is. But another movie again.
But that's part of the canon of those westerns that he made, and in my mind, Sergio Leone he was the master. Nothing beats the all those Sergio movies that he made. How the West Was Won, and of course, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Yeah. And it's funny. It's interesting when you first said, "Okay, movies of the '70s, let's go," and immediately we weren't even off the phone yet, and I knew that my number one was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Because I saw it in the 70s, but it was actually made in 66 or 67, something like that.
That makes sense.
So it's not on my list, but if it would be, that would be my number one. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. To me, that's the pinnacle of movie making in my mind.
And with that said, I mean, and just real quick for anybody that hasn't seen it, it's basically about a town that hires, first they hire some gunslingers to protect the town from individuals that are getting out of jail to and they know these individuals are going to get out of jail and exact revenge on this town for something. And then Clint Eastwood comes into town, and the gunslingers draw down on Clint Eastwood, and he kills them. And so the town just pivots and hires Clint Eastwood to defend the town.
Right.
So that's just the setup. And then madness ensues.
Yes. But all of those, man, Hang 'em High. It's another great.
A Fistful of Dollars.
A few dollars more. Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
all those were great.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, my number 3.
Yes.
I already mentioned it, but Jaws.
Jaws, great.
Oh, man,
Truly
that got
an amazing movie.
That got me. That I forgot what they call that. I think it's called the Hitchcock move. The camera zoom and pull back at the same time. That whole thing when
Brody's on the beach.
And he rips his glasses off and all. Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it. It's awesome. Yeah. And then of course I grew up in Florida, and we swam I swam a lot, either at the beach or in the pool. And there's literally years after seeing that movie that I heard the music in my head when I went underwater. Every time I went underwater and the sound all dissipated, I heard the Jaws music. So I did like the movie from some of the technical stuff. Obviously, the shark scenes looked way more real than anything that I had ever seen at that time. And I wonder if it's genetic, because when my kid was about 6 years old, he wanted to see it. This is when you still rented DVDs, and we were looking through all these racks of DVDs, and of course he saw the shark, and he's 8 years old. Of course he likes sharks, right? And I'm thinking to myself, gosh, shit, man, I don't know if I should show him this, because I know how impactful it is for the first time if you haven't experienced it. So I decided, okay, let's watch it. And on the way home, I was telling him, okay, this is a big mechanical shark. He's rubber, and he's not a real shark and all that. So when you watch it, don't freak out. And he was fine. I mean, him and I talked about it just a couple of weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah, about the impact. And he said, yeah, I remember you telling me that. So.
And like I said, yeah, for me, and this movie could have easily been on my list, could have been number 1. The only reason, and again, it was just one of those things where also I kind of wanted to highlight, honestly, some other stuff too.
Yeah, some more obscure stuff.
Yeah, but with that said, acting's insane.
Yes,
it's amazing. It's almost like 2 movies in one.
Yeah,
because you kind of have the whole stuff where they're on the island and then they're on the boat. Yes. And the whole boat stuff.
That's epic, man.
Epic.
Yeah,
epic. Of course, the best line ever is, "We're going to need a bigger boat."
Yeah, yeah.
Because like early on, and Richard Dreyfuss, I would say probably his best movie.
Absolutely.
There's clearly,
by far. Yep.
There's clearly tension between him and Shaw.
Yep.
And that comes through.
And that character, oh my gosh, man,
well,
what
supposedly
a great
he was
character.
Yeah, supposedly he was like drunk, like when he wasn't acting like
he was literally tore up.
Yeah, I got to tell you right now, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen Jaws, pause this freaking
and go
watch it.
I was going to say go rent the DVD, but go stream it. Yeah.
Well, you remember also early on, like when what was Richard Dreyfuss's character's name? I can't remember. Hooper.
Hooper, yeah.
Yeah, Hooper.
Yep.
And
he was a scientist.
Yeah, he was supposed to be like a marine biologist, right? And he goes down to that boat and the head rolls out.
Yes.
That was, spoiler, again.
Yeah, but you'll never know. You'll never see it coming. That's not really a spoiler, because you'll never, from what you just said, you'll never see that coming.
And again, when we're talking about movies of the 70s.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if you haven't seen it, I would.
But again, the probably the best long scene in a movie ever is when Shaw is, and I forget the character's name, Quint.
When they're playing cards.
Well, and he starts talking about what happened to him on the Indianapolis.
When they do the scar thing, right?
Yes.
That's how it starts.
Yes.
That's how it starts.
Yeah, and he talks about how that whole thing where his friends were getting eaten by sharks,
one by one, getting picked off.
They were bobbing around the water, and he's like, sharks' eyes are black until they bite you and they roll.
Yeah, and they roll back. Yeah,
I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, and he delivered. Yeah, I was going to say he delivered those lines, but he didn't really deliver lines. Like that's what you do when you're not acting well. Right. It was so real. Like, when you're watching, it was just like, man, that was, again, suspension of disbelief, right?
Yeah. He was a shark hunter.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So, that great flick. Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about this one.
Yeah.
So is it my number 2 or your number 2?
I don't know. You can go.
You go.
Okay, I'll go. Number 2. This one's a little bit different. You might have it somewhere on your list, being that we both like sometimes not the most popular movies, but Papillon.
Oh, Papillon's interesting. Yeah.
Papillon. Oh, man. And again, I watched this one a little bit late. I didn't see it when it came out in the 70s. I had no way would I have understood this when I was a kid.
Right.
But watching it nowadays, it's like, man, that movie was epic. Talk about the struggle for survival and that whole struggle of optimism in a just literally life-ending situation. It's awesome. Just great film. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one I think it's a great flick. I've probably only seen it like twice.
Yeah.
But
you should watch it now when you're a little bit older and you have a little bit more life experience. You watch it now, you're like, damn, that's good.
Yeah.
Man,
Well,
good.
it's got Dustin Hoffman and Steve McQueen's in it.
Yeah, McQueen.
Yeah, if I remember correctly. And it just it's about Devil's Island, right?
It's about. I'm not sure if it's Devil's Island. I can't remember that, but I remember it's a prison. Basically he goes to prison on this island, and he's basically isolated, and he never gives up hope of trying to escape. And all these different plans to escape, and the whole emotional roller coaster that he goes through, in his sort of long lasting dream of escape. But I mean, this lasted what? I forgot how many years exactly, 20 some odd years, and he never gave up hope.
Have you seen it recently?
No, I haven't seen it recently. So the details are a little bit vague, and I didn't do like you. I didn't do a crap ton of research. So,
I did 30 minutes.
Okay.
So I just looked up. I
did 5.
So. You're doing good.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. A lot of this I remember well, but that I don't remember too many of the details about that part. But.
I understand. But no, I know the movie. Now that you mentioned it, I want to go back and watch it.
Yeah, it was good, yeah.
But, all right, my number 2?
Yep.
Alien.
Ah,
1979.
79,
so right under the wire.
Sigourney. She's awesome.
Yeah, and just FYI, everybody listening, they're about ready to jack it up because there's a TV show, Alien TV show in development, Kill Me Now.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they'll mess it up. I mean, can we please leave independent properties alone? I just want to throw that out there.
No, they won't.
They won't. Yeah, but again, Sigourney Weaver, this is the bit where it all began, you know? And you had like Tom Skerritt, he played Dallas, and the chick, the woman that was screaming, that was Veronica Cartwright. Lots of great actors in the whole movie. The screenplay was by a guy named Dan O'Bannon. I actually know this because there's a special on Shudder right now that talks about these folks.
Okay.
But Dan O'Bannon did did the screenplay for Total Recall. Even though Total Recall was done by what's his name, the writer who did Blade Runner. God, I can't believe his name escapes me. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, shoot. Peter O'Toole just popped in my mind, but I know
no, it's
that's
not Peter
O'Toole.
Anyway, it'll come to me in a minute. Yeah. He also did Blue Thunder, which is a great movie. If you like that kind of stuff, and he also worked a lot with John Carpenter,
right.
And directed by Ridley Scott. Another amazing soundtrack, and that was a guy named Jerry Goldsmith. Anyway, with that said, one reason again had a massive impact on me, but at the time, this came out about a year and a half after Star Wars, so we're kind of in this like friendly alien world,
the happy alien
world, and all of a sudden somebody drops Alien, and again, if you haven't seen this movie, and it's funny because Doug just talked about Jaws. There's some similarities here between Alien and Jaws. Oh, by the way, there was an actor. His name was, and I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher his name. Balaji Bendejo was the actor who played the alien. There you go.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so very tall, skinny guy, I guess. And but it's about a ship in space that lands on a planet. One of the individuals on the crew goes down, gets impregnated by an alien, and chaos ensues. Right. And
I'll tell you what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to create a podcast to talk about that whole thing, because Prometheus I liked a lot, which they're linked.
Right.
And so we're going to have to dedicate a podcast to that. And I'll actually do some research.
I'm okay with that.
I liked Aliens, but it didn't have the impact on me that it did on you. I think the one scene that had the impact was when the alien popped out of the guy's chest. You know that famous scene?
Right.
But I didn't like the way the alien looked. When I first saw that movie, I thought, like, I don't know. It didn't scare me. I don't know. He was too puppety maybe for me.
Well, when it originally came out of his stomach, that I agree.
No, I'm talking about the alien itself.
Okay.
Like that famous scene where he's like right next to Sigourney Weaver's face and he's breathing. So I don't know. Somehow to me that it didn't click. Yeah, it just didn't click.
Well, I mean, that was all, what is it? H.R. Geiger, all that kind of stuff. And I will, and again, we're talking about movies of the 70s. I'm probably a bigger fan of the sequel. You know, the first sequel, the John Carpenter, or the oh man, the what's his name, James Cameron sequel. Yeah. Only because I really respect the sequel that takes something completely in a different direction, and that's what he did.
Right.
But and by the way, Philip K. Dick was Total Recall. So
okay.
yeah. So anyway, with that said, but with that, I watched this movie, and there's certain things about it that I now this is probably less about how it impacted me when I was a kid, but when I watch it now, I like how the ship, the way they act is almost like a family. It's very family oriented. And it seems like people in that environment act like they really would in a situation like that, and again, we can also speak to the fact that, Sigourney, we live in this world now where they talk about like strong women. I mean, she's the original on this. She's not to, I'll talk like the kids. And
what about Sulu?
What's that?
What about not Sulu? Who was the communications chip?
I know. On Star, Uhura.
Uhura, that's it. Uhura.
Yeah. Well, Sigourney Weaver has her. Big time. But so anyway, just a really, to me, a really solid movie.
Yeah.
So and that's my number 2. We've already done your number 2, right?
Yep.
Okay. And so let's do some honorable mentions.
Okay, honorable mentions. All right, I'm going to throw this one out there because this partners up exactly with your Omega Man, Soylent Green.
Oh yeah, it's on my list.
I know that's on your.
It's on my honorable mentions.
Yeah. So. It has to be. That was great. And if you haven't seen this one, again, it's old school, and they're basically the food shortage in the world. It's a dystopian thing. The food shortage in the world, and they're making crackers out of people.
Right.
And it was.
Oh, dude, you totally spoiled it.
I know, whatever. It's a 40-year-old movie. Go watch it. That was good. And then I have got They Call Me Nobody.
Oh yeah, that's another Sergio Leone movie.
No, actually, no. They Call Me Nobody was directed by almost a nobody. And the only reason I know this is one piece of research that I did do. Yep.
Is that My Name Is Nobody?
My Name Is Nobody. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And gosh dang it, I'm blanking on the guy who stars in it.
He didn't do much after. I mean, he was kind of like
he did a series. He did a series of these. Starts with a T.
But Henry Fonda in it too.
Trent. No. Anyways, whatever his name is. I'll think of it. Just like you, I'll think of it.
I'm looking it up.
You're gonna
look
it up. Okay, good. Yeah. Terrence
Howard.
No,
that's definitely not Terrence Howard.
Anyway,
I can't Google and work. It's 1974.
Yeah.
Terrence Hill.
That's it.
Henry
Okay,
Fonda.
So here's some interesting things that I learned about this movie is that Terrence Hill.
Oh, you're right. Definitely not directed by Sergio Leone.
Yeah. Terrence Hill took this role for a very specific reason, and that was that he did not agree with the way Hollywood was making movies. And what he didn't agree with is probably some of the stuff that I wouldn't agree with now. And what he described is like they were making movies with a lot of violence because they were against violence.
Right.
And he didn't make that connection. He's like, it doesn't make any sense. If you're against violence, don't show violence. So he really liked the screenplay on this where they used comedy. And this is the first time I had seen a Western that wasn't like ridiculous comedy, right? Mm-hmm. That was actually, but I mean, totally cheesy nowadays when you watch it with the sped up, like he does. There's a lot of scenes that he does gun stuff.
Still looks good though,
and they just speed it up. That's all they do. But it was fun. It was a really fun one. So that was that, and you probably have this on your honorable mention. I'm thinking The Warriors.
Oh no, but I would.
Yeah, Warriors.
That's a great flick, man.
Yeah. Oh gosh, man, that one almost gave me nightmares, and that's what I thought of New York. You know, when I thought that's what the city streets of New York was like after watching The Warriors.
Right.
That was that. Outlaw Josie Wales, definitely honorable mention. That's on my list. Another one that you probably have, if it's not your number one and it's on your honorable mention, is Clockwork Orange.
Mm-hmm.
Kubrick, man. I mean, gosh, that movie's confusing and disturbing, and it's almost hard to watch, but you can't take your eyes off of it. It's crazy movie. Young Frankenstein. That's on my honorable mention. Rocky.
Yep.
Is my last one on my honorable mention. And then again, I thought your Smoking the Bandit was going to be your number one.
Yeah, we're getting there. So, all right. Okay, so here's mine. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I think, honestly, any of these, and there's some overlap, but I also think, like, all your honorable mentions that are not on my list are on my list.
Yeah.
You know, so
you can double the list, yeah.
Yeah, so Jaws, and again, I think it definitely deserves a place on here.
Yep.
Maybe I just thought you were going to have it. So, Planet of the Apes, Soylent Green.
Yep.
Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, I debated that one a lot.
Did you really?
Yeah, that was really because I watched that a lot when I was a kid, numerous times,
right.
over and over again. It was great. Yeah,
but it goes back to if it was on right now, I'd watch it.
Yeah,
and I do think honestly, for what they did well.
Yeah,
and I mean Gene Wilder. It's based
Gene
on
Wilder,
based on Gene Wilder. Yeah. White Lightning.
Oh yeah, that was. I flirted with that one too. I watched that not too long ago. What a great movie!
I own it. And by the way, just so you know, White Lightning is kind of one of the precursors to Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah.
There's even I think the
what
guy.
was the other one in the series?
Gator.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Gator. Gator gets a little bit kind of hokey. White Lightning is.
It was refined, right? Because Gator was first.
No. White Lightning was first.
Really?
Yes, White Lightning was first. Gator was second because he was Gator McCluskey
in White Lightning.
In White Lightning, and then they make Gator. And then
okay, I thought it was the other way around.
Yeah, and again, I watched Gator, and it's just kind of a little bit hokier than White Lightning is even though it's kind of got that Burt Reynolds is still kind of refining his charm. And so it's pretty gritty, and it's a gritty story,
that scene where they get into the fight in that little shack and stuff.
Oh, it's brutal.
Oh man, that is rough.
It is brutal.
Gosh,
yeah.
Man,
and he starts basically trying to get those cops to like rape the woman. So he can basically it's just dark.
Yeah, it is dark.
Well, and also one that's not on my list, and you didn't mention it, was Deliverance.
Yeah, I never saw it in the 70s. I think I was probably too young, and my mom kept me away from it or whatever. And watching it afterwards,
I don't know, man.
I
think I know where you're going with that.
Yeah, it's kind of tough.
I will tell you it's not a movie where I'm like, I mean, again, it's not a movie that I'm like, hey, let's
go watch Deliverance.
Ned Beatty gets
raped. Yeah.
You're like, whoa. I mean, it's a. Well, I'll even tell you, like, to a certain level, I don't watch like I Am Legend. I think it's a fine movie. I'll never watch it again.
Right.
But it's got stuff in it that disturbs me.
Yeah.
And not in a good way.
Yeah.
And same, but Deliverance, same thing. Good movie.
Yeah.
Probably the only redeeming scene in that movie is the Burt Reynolds scene where the individuals are getting assaulted and you see through the woods and you see Burt Reynolds with that compound bow.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh.
Here it comes.
Yeah. And so that was and he did it. He did it like a killer, and that was cool, right? So, but anyway, White Lightning, one of my favorites. Phantasm.
Phantasm. Never liked that one.
I like again strictly impact that it had on me.
Okay.
Well, another thing too about it is one of the reasons I did like it, and again, these aren't movies on our list, but one of the reasons I did like it as a kid, it was one of the first times I've ever watched a horror movie where bad stuff starts happening to the people in the movie, and rather than just like screaming and hiding in a closet, they react to it in a way where I'm like, I would do that.
Oh, okay.
Like they get guns,
Yeah.
There's a scene where they fight back. Yeah. And so you're kind of like, oh, I'm okay with that. Mad Max.
Oh yeah, that was 70s, really?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think you're right. Late 70s.
Yeah, late 70s.
Yeah.
I put it on there thinking it was.
I missed that one because that would probably be on my honorable mention for sure.
Yeah, Outlaw Josie Wales, Dirty Harry, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, A Bridge Too Far.
Okay.
Kelly's Heroes. So
a
lot of Clint Eastwood stuff popping up.
Yeah, those war movies from the 70s. I was never. I was kind of okay with.
Most of them. Kelly's Heroes is barely a war movie.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But A Bridge Too Far, totally. But it was a movie that I saw with my dad.
I own that. I mean, I like it enough where I own it. Yeah, but
I did put Star Wars on there, even though I'm not a big fan of Star Wars anymore.
Yeah.
Monty Python.
It's funny, that Star Wars thing, man. I just didn't get into it, and I got nothing against it. I really don't.
Right.
But it came out, and it was, of course, all the rave, and people were talking about it, going to the movies, and I'm just like, I'm just not interested. I don't know why. I can't identify why. I don't think it's a bad film or a bad story or anything like that. It's just like I never got into it.
Right.
And the whole franchise has been that way. I think I did go see the second and third one at some point in the movie theater just because it was there, but I never went like, oh, this is great. I can't wait. I'm going to the first midnight show. None of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And
so it was always, to me, it was always like, meh.
I think, like I said, I think it was a production of its time. You know what I mean? So I think, I mean, I did see it. I liked it. I was a kid. I was easily influenced by things that went peer. You know what I mean? So, and I did think the second one, in retrospect, The Empire Strikes Back is probably one of the, but that was in, I think, 1980. That's why it's not on the list. Is but I think it's the best of any Star Wars movie, and for all the reasons people say it is. But the prequels are not great, and the sequels are horrible in my opinion.
So I didn't watch any of them.
So well, I did. I've watched all three of them, and but we don't need it. That's a whole nother. That's a whole nother thing to peel. Okay, Monty Python.
Yep.
One that's kind of a little bit of a. I don't know if you've even heard of it. The Duelist. It's another Ridley Scott movie.
I have heard of it, but I don't think I've watched it.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Maybe we need to watch it.
Okay.
Again, I have some thoughts on that. But with that said, just an idea. It's about these two guys that duel. Mm-hmm. Okay. Hence the name. They're both officers in the French military during the Napoleonic times. Mm. And there was a rule. They could never. They never managed to kill each other. But there was a rule that any time the French were at war, officers couldn't duel. Mm-hmm. So the way it kind of played out, and there was always this kind of off again, on again wartime. Mm-hmm. And so, they would duel, almost kill each other. War would start out. There'd be this long delay.
Right.
And then there would be a time of peace.
So they kept it a long-term grudge.
Yes. Oh, Lord. Okay. And so, and again, Ridley Scott, low budget, a period piece.
It's funny because it's, we talk about all these and a lot of the stuff that we have in common in terms of like liking this style or this type of movie. It's Ridley Scott keeps coming up because I just like his style.
Yeah.
I like his style of directing and his vision for these things,
Oh, yeah. Well,
the Darkness and Prometheus is one that we'll talk about at some point. That's one of my favorite Ridley Scotts.
Yeah, yeah. And also, and again, you talked about, we brought Clockwork Orange, kind of similar to Kubrick. Come on, man.
Yeah, man. It's like...
But, and Barry Lyndon isn't on here, but I did like, but it's a hard watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Okay.
Three more.
Okay. I thought I had a lot.
I know. I just went crazy. Rocky had put on their Animal House and Breaking Away.
Okay. Yeah. Animal House I put Animal House in the same category I put Star Wars and the Beatles. I just don't care about it. I never have.
It's just again, it's not, it's kind of an honorable mention. Yeah. I think Caddyshack came out.
If it was 70s, it was 79.
Yeah. It would be on here if it was.
Yeah. So.
By the way, that's a very funny movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Yeah.
So.
Okay, number one. Your turn. Go.
You were right. Smokey and the Bandit.
Smokey and the Bee. I was right.
Yes. Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't know how hard that was with me. I'm very...
you're pretty transparent.
When it comes to that movie. I just love that movie. Yes, and again, okay, so right now, everybody, I can feel the eyes rolling on the other end of this, but I can justify this. For one, I will tell you...
Let's hear it.
Okay. It came out in the same time as Star Wars.
All you got to say is Sally Field's little smile.
Oh, dude,
that's it. That was a good.
Well, and this movie clearly has faults. Okay, yes. But that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. But it came out the same year as Star Wars. It was number 2. Mm-hmm. Okay, Star Wars is number 1. Mm-hmm. This is number 2. Okay, Burt Reynolds, Sally Field, Jerry Reed, of course, the always perfect Jackie Gleason was insanely
stealing
awesome.
The show in every scene. Yeah.
His son was played by a guy named Mike Henry. He played Junior. Huh. And I again, in a movie database, the guy has very few credits.
Right.
But he played off of Jackie Gleason perfect. Mm-hmm. Paul Williams and Pat McCormick is Big and Little Enos, right? It was directed by Hal Needham. Hal Needham was actually like roommates with Burt Reynolds in Florida. Okay. And again, the beauty of this movie is the fact that it was almost like, a grassroots organic movie making, before there was a YouTube, and these guys just made this movie.
Yeah, they got together, and it wasn't like hey, let's go to the big Hollywood guys and get tons of money.
No.
And
it's clearly, and also because I'm just FYI, we're filming this on 4th of July weekend. I think it took place during the 4th of July because when they pulled into Texarkana to get the beer, it had like a God Bless America on her birthday banner or something. With that said, and again, allow me to just go off here for a few minutes.
Do it.
In the first, like I want to say 2 minutes of the movie. Okay, there's a scene where there's a truck parked, and cops pull up, and they're like, hey, is this your rig, boy? And he's like, yes. And they go open it up, and he opens up the back, and there's a wall of Coors beer, and the guy goes, "You dumb gear jammer! You Holland Coors beer, east of Texas is against the law." 2 minutes, we know what the movie's about, right? He makes some sort of statement like, "Oh, there's these 2 big Texans that paid me a lot of money to do this," and in other words, the setup was that small, okay? And like in the next 5 minutes, like Big and Little Enos show up at the truck rally, which, by the way, they're drag racing rigs and like the parking lot of a fairground, which is amazing. Yeah, yeah. And they hire him.
Hang on, wait a minute. For the audience, I can see Tony's redneck is showing.
Oh my God! You kidding? Well, again, I grew up in Atlanta too. So they hire him. So in the first like 7 minutes of the movie, we're moving. You know what I mean? We're moving. And so the movie is just really clean in the way it just kind of moves the story forward. It is clearly, again, it's almost going back in Star Wars. I get it. There's tons of bullshit. Okay. For example, they have 28 hours to go to Texarkana, Texas and come back with beer. There's nobody, we don't know when the clock starts.
Right.
We don't know when the clock ends. We don't know any of that stuff. It's just fantasy.
Yes.
Don't tell me there's not a galaxy that existed long ago and far away. I get it. Yes. Don't tell me that
there's no lightsabers.
Yeah, exactly. Don't tell me that, Trans Ams, they really weren't all that fast. Yeah. I get it, okay? Yes. I get it, okay?
Suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, this movie is all about that. But like I said, and that's the whole plot. Him and Jerry Reed in the truck. And by the way, Jerry Reed, another guy named Bill Justice, not like Buford T. Justice, spelled different, did the soundtrack.
Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah, Jerry Reed's great in that movie and in the soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly. Eastbound and Down is and
I still listen.
I did. By the way, just FYI, I looked up the soundtrack on Spotify today. There is a song on there, and you're gonna love this, called "Hot Pants Fuzz Parade."
Oh wow.
You're welcome. So
I'm gonna just let that slide and moving on.
Hot Pants Fuzz Parade. Thank you, Bill Justice.
Okay.
So and getting back around. So that's the whole plot point.
Right.
A lot of clearly no CGI.
Right.
Real stunts, real fast cars.
Right.
So with all that said, and getting back to what we're saying, what really put the movie over the top is Jackie Gleason. Gleason, he plays the antagonist.
Buford T. Justice.
Yeah, Buford T. Justice. Again, a movie that would never get made today because he just
not
doesn't.
Even close. Yeah.
But he has this banter between him and his son that's in the car with him, and from what I understand, they gave him a script and he's like, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
He just ad-libbed everything.
Yes.
So another thing that's insane.
Yeah.
And I mean this. This is not hyperbole. Everything he says is funny.
It's gold, yeah.
It is.
It's gold, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of Jackie Gleason, right? So it's funny because people go off and talk about these actors and all this stuff.
Right.
But you take a guy like that, and he can read the script and read the what's required, right, to be funny, because he's been doing comedy at this point. He's been doing comedy for 40 years,
if not longer.
Moonliners. I was going to say honeymooners.
Yeah.
All the way back, right? And so he can read all of that. And then just get into character and become that Buford T. Justice character.
Yeah. Oh no,
and then that's it. Yeah.
Oh, did you not believe he was Did you not believe he was a redneck, racist, freaking Texas sheriff?
Yeah, it was perfect, man. Yeah.
And again, I don't want to spoil it, but
you already have.
But you know what I mean. It's like I could quote that movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But he. Everything he says is just amazing, and the fact that it's like the banter with his son, and understand if you haven't seen it and you decide you're going to watch it, you have to sometimes listen to what he has to say or what he says and realize, he's
improv it.
He's improv it, right? So anyway,
so okay, I will say this. Let me say this: if you haven't seen this film and go see it, you have to drop a note in our podcast and thank Tony, or swear at him, whatever.
Sure. And again, I realize everything is subjective. I know, like right now, if I were to go to one of my colleagues where I work and say, "Hey, come over," I haven't thought about this.
Yeah.
Like, let's go watch Smoking the Bandit.
Smoking the Bandit Party.
It's a waste of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not going to get it.
I should get the hood of a Trans Am and nail it up to your wall.
Hey, and at the time, I grew up.
You probably would have, yeah.
Yeah, I grew up to be a Pontiac guy. I like Pontiacs. Yeah. So anyway, what's your number one?
Okay, so my number one, I think, well, you mentioned it in your opening, but it wasn't on anybody's list. Apocalypse Now.
Oh, good flick.
And here's why. This speaks to my analytical side. So I think all of the stuff about that movie that makes it famous, where most people know, I think are parts about the movie that I don't like Wagner with the helicopters flying in and all of that. I did not like that part of the movie. I thought that the character was, what's his name? Go with the cowboy hat. Dang it.
Oh, Robert Duvall.
Robert Duvall, yep.
Yeah.
I thought that character in the movie was cartoonish. And I know they probably did it on purpose. Coppola probably did it on purpose. But what I liked about the movie was you talk about a movie about the hero's journey, man. But it doesn't follow that stereotypical arc. It's all internal. It's all this. So for anybody who hasn't seen this movie, I don't even know how to explain this movie. It's basically based in Vietnam, and it's about a special forces guy who's gone off the reservation. He started his own little tribe in the middle of the jungle somewhere. And then, so the government decides to send another special forces guy in to try to assassinate him, right? Because he's...
Yeah, I don't even say it's about the Vietnam War the way like The Good, the Bad, the Ugly is about the Civil War.
Yeah.
It's
it's just where it took place, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, so this character that's in the air cav, the air cav was basically new at that time, and they're taking advantage of their position and all that. But the simple fact that he wipes out an entire Vietnam village just so he can surf, I just thought it was cartoonish. It was like, I didn't like that part. The part that I did like was the struggle that Charlie Sheen went through, because he gets assigned to go take this guy out, and he's way up in the river in Cambodia, and they're not supposed to go to Cambodia, right? That was our agreement. So he gets on this little PT type boat, and they're going up the river, which is very dangerous. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4 guys on the boat, 2 real young kids, and then there's the guy who runs the boat, and then there's another guy called Chef, who's I don't know, he's the engineman or something like that.
Lawrence Fishburne?
No, the guy with the big mustache from Louisiana. Yes, okay, that guy's name was Chef. Yeah. So anyway, the whole time the story's kind of narrated. Charlie Sheen's telling you as an audience about this guy that he's going to kill. And he's reading through the dossier and all of his records, and he sees all of this stuff in himself. He sees all of this. Like, he didn't have this exact same career, but he sees the proud American and all of that. And this was pretty much an anti-war movie, almost an anti-American movie, to be honest with you.
And it wasn't that long after Vietnam.
No, not at all. Yeah. So the stage was just set. But anyway, long story short, he goes through this massive journey. He feels, I would say he suppresses his guilt. When some of the guys on the boat start getting killed, he knows that they're just collateral damage for his mission, and he feels guilty about that. But he feels no guilt whatsoever about the other people that he has to kill along the way. There's 2 scenes in this movie that just all my favorite movie scenes. One is the chief that's in charge of the boat decides, like, hey, there's a little Vietnamese boat that we normally stop. His normal duty is to make sure that people aren't smuggling Viet Cong or weapons or ammunition. So he decides he's going to stop this boat. And so he stops the boat. He makes a couple of the kids get on the boat with their guns and search the boat. And as they start to search, one of the ladies starts to cover up something, like she's protecting something. So then the tension just immediately skyrockets, and they start yelling back and forth and so on. And then the lady goes to cover up again, and then the young kid with no experience on the boat just opens up with the machine gun and just kills everybody on the boat. And this woman, she's laying there crying, bleeding, shot all up and stuff. And then Chef, who's actually on the boat searching, he's pissed off. He can't believe that we killed all of these people. We're just searching, and he looks at and he finds that she was protecting a puppy.
Oh, man.
There was a little puppy. And he is just furious. Hey, we're, killing all these people just because she was protecting a puppy, man. All this kind of stuff. So anyway, the young kid decides, give me the puppy. He's adopting that puppy. Some weird way. That's
right.
His, the way he's making up for his mistake.
Trying to make it right.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. And then so the chief decides they can't leave because this woman's not dead. She's agony, and Charlie Sheen walks over with no emotion and kills her. Says, okay, let's get on with the mission. So he feels no guilt about things like that. Mm-hmm. But when anybody on his crew gets killed, he feels responsible, So that weird, I don't know, it's multi-layered storytelling of this emotional journey that this guy's taking. And then in the end, he ends up, coming to this guy, and it's very difficult to explain it all in terms of the weirdness of what happens when he gets to Kurtz's camp. Mm-hmm. But anyway, he ends up fulfilling his mission. But when he comes out of the cave after killing Kurtz, he's covered in blood. He's breathing really hard and all of that sort of stuff. And he realizes that he has become the warrior that Kurtz was telling him that you have to become. If you're going to be a warrior, you have to be ruthless. You have to be literally emotionless, ruthless person. And he realizes that he's always been that, because in the opening scenes of the movie, he's in a hotel, and his narrative is that he's back in Vietnam. He went home and he couldn't hack it. He didn't like it. He didn't know what to do. So he requested to come back and go in the jungle, and that's how he ended up getting this mission. So he's kind of a full circle sort of story. But my favorite scene in the whole movie, last thing I'll say, he goes out, they steal this dude's surfboard, when he goes out to surf, whenever they steal the surfboard, and they're hiding the boat because the helicopter is flying over. Give us back our surfboard, and they're hiding the boat. And then so Chef decides, like, hey man, I want to go in the jungle and pick some mangoes. Chief, can I go get some mangoes? He's like, yeah, okay, take somebody with you. So Charlie Sheen goes with him. And so this is after kind of a comical movement in the film, and they're walking through the jungle quiet. Of course, it's still Vietnam. They're carrying M16 stuff, and Chef starts telling him about why he's a chef. He's a saucier, and he's explaining what all of that means. And it's this little vulnerability moment, and all of a sudden, click, something they hear a twig snap or something. I'm like, oh man, what's going on? And so they're, the camera work on this is great, and they start moving around.
Coppola.
Yeah, Coppola. Well, I got more than Coppola. I'll tell you that in a second. But the camera moves around, and you see this figure coming at them from the jungle real slow. And all of a sudden, it starts picking up speed, and it's a tiger. And so Charlie Sheen takes the tiger out. You don't show you that graphically in any way. It's just gunshots, and it's all implied. But Chef's running back. He drops his bucket. Never found his mangoes. He drops his bucket. He's hauling ass back to the boat, man. When he gets into the boat, it's kind of like what you were saying about Buford T. Justice. It's really difficult for me to see that this guy was acting. I don't know. Maybe they were dropping acid. I don't know what they were doing. But when he gets back into the boat, he is freaked out, hysterical. And I don't know how somebody could act like this. If you ever, when you get to that scene in the movie, you watch it, you're like, holy shit, man, that guy's like legit freaked out.
Yeah.
But he's ripping his shirt off and screaming. You can barely understand what the hell he's saying.
Yeah.
But that was one of my favorite scenes.
Well, you mentioned that as far as like, just good acting, And I have to go back and revisit the movie. It's been a long. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I've seen it, but it's Yeah,
you got to get in the right frame of mind though, because it's one of those movies you got to focus. You got to pay attention because you miss a couple of the details, and all of a sudden the story doesn't make sense. It's a couple things missed is not good. And
you always felt, and what you're talking about, like where it doesn't seem like they're acting, but they're just kind of living, and the camera's there. And. But going back to the movie Alien, like the scene where the chest burster comes out, and the crew freaks out, and there's always been that rumor that that Ridley Scott didn't tell the crew what was gonna the people. He
didn't tell them,
that was the rumor. But again, I just watched a movie about the making of, and they're like, no, we didn't know exactly what was going to happen, but we kind of knew what was going to happen,
Of course, we read the script, right?
Sure, and again, it was pretty bloody if you've seen the movie, but again, when somebody says, "Oh yeah, they didn't know," you can actually watch that scene and go, "Yeah, it looks like they didn't know."
Looks like they didn't know. Yeah, it's a good acting.
So, and one last thing, and last on my favorite. I just want to one thing I forgot to mention about Smokey and the Bandit. One scene, you mentioned the scene, and then we'll full circle. And this is real quick. There's a scene in there where Burt Reynolds, I'm pretty sure Burt Reynolds is driving the Trans Am, and he launches it between, and it's in the very beginning of the movie, between like a brick building and a tree, and it's literally like he's got like inches on either side, drives it perfectly between these two buildings, a building and tree, and then he rolls the Trans Am up, and he breaks the fourth wall. He looks at the camera and smiles. And even to this day, I watch that, and I'm just like, God, that guy.
Well, that's when he kind of perfected that charm thing, right? He did,
yeah.
Man. Because, gosh, the girls were swooning over him.
Oh, and there's so many movies afterwards that you're just kind of like, oh my gosh, this is terrible.
Yeah,
but
he gets that little smirk on his face. He was charming, man.
Yeah, that movie nailed it. And he was a little bit self-effacing, too, and that made it nice, but he nailed it. Yeah, anyway, so
the last thing I want to say about I was going to call it Heart of Darkness. It's based on the book Heart of Darkness.
I think there's a documentary called Heart of Darkness.
Oh man, I'll tell you, if you watch that documentary, it's crazy. I mean, the making of that film was ridiculous. They had hurricanes, whole sets were destroyed.
Sure, I think like either both like freaking what's his name, the guy that starred in it?
Charlie Sheen.
Was it Charlie? Not Charlie Sheen, his father. Martin Sheen. Yeah, Martin Sheen. I think both like Martin Sheen and like Francis Ford Coppola. Like both of them had like heart attacks and stuff. Like during the filming. Like it was a cluster.
And then what's his name? Oh, God dang it! I should have written all this shit down for now.
Yeah, sorry.
The bald guy at the end. Brando, Marlon Brando.
He was
Marlon Brando. He shows up like he's supposed to be like a super buff, you know.
Yeah, he weighs like 300 pounds.
Yeah, he was fat and overweight and all that sort of stuff. Didn't even read the script. He didn't remember his lines, all that shit.
Right.
But so this is what I wanted to say. The filmmakers took advantage of that. That's why he's in the shadows, and you barely see him.
Right.
You barely see him, but that adds so much to that character. That really, they played that perfectly.
It's like the shark in Jaws.
Yeah. Exactly.
They don't hardly show the shark in Jaws because that shit didn't work.
Yep. They show a fin and they show his head. That was it. But the last thing I want to say though, and this is one of the things that I like so much about this movie is the editor was Walter Murch, and he's the best editor that Hollywood's ever seen, and you can probably Google that, and everybody would tell you the same thing. But this guy, the way he worked was awesome, but he basically would get piles of film, and he had to go through it and try to build a story out of this. And again, we talked a little bit about the problems that this film had. To take what he got in raw footage and turn it into this was stupendous. I mean, to me, every time I watch it, I think like, how in the hell can you visually tell this story like this? Even without the dialogue, you know what's going on. Right. You know, well, it's just brilliance, man. Because I edit, and it's hard. It's hard to not be clunky. You know,
and that movie did age like wine. It really did, because I think initially it was, critics were kind of mixed on it, and people have really come around to be.
If you watch the redo version, the Redux version, whatever, it's got a whole scene in it where that wasn't in the theatrical release, and there's a lot of statements in that movie that I'm not a big fan of, right? So I didn't like any of the psychedelic stuff, and that's where we talk about, for the time it was probably relevant, but as I look back now, it didn't age well for me. Those particular things, like Lance is one of the guys on the boat, and he drops acid all the time, and he's freaked out, and he's all hippie-ish, you know what I mean? And that stuff was legit, and there's a lot of guys did that in Vietnam, but to me, it doesn't add anything to the movie really. It's just sort of like a background character, whatever. I didn't like the whole Playboy scene where the Playboy bunnies were there in the USO and all that. It just spoke to how spoiled we are as Americans, and we're trying to fight a war, you know. And I think it wasn't the opening line, but it was one of the early lines in the movie where Martin Sheen says, every day that I sit in this hotel, I get weaker, and every day the Vietnamese sit out there and in the jungle, they get stronger, and that was basically the theme of the movie. But I mean, Murch putting that stuff together was great. But in the redo version, the Redux version, there's a whole scene where they come across some French guys, and they have this big conversation at dinner. They invite them. It's almost like a plantation. It's like a throwback to the 20s or even the teens. This plantation, and the French guy, his whole family is there, and the French really kind of started the Vietnam War. They invaded, and then they screwed it all up, and we had to come basically and whatever. Anyway, that's essentially what happened. I mean, that's obviously oversimplifying it.
It's a little bit more nuanced, but yeah.
But anyway, so this whole scene with the French was in there, and I didn't think it added. I mean, clearly the people who did the Redux thought it added, but it added to the story a little bit, I guess. But to me, it was like you
didn't like the helicopter scene, you didn't like the acid scene, you didn't like the Playboy bunny scene. This is your favorite movie.
It is.
Okay.
Because of the storytelling.
Awesome.
The storytelling.
I love it. No, it's good.
So anyway.
All right. So
we went way over.
Yeah. Whatever. It doesn't really matter.
Edit, Tony. Edit.
I like an edit. Well, I'll edit out some of the stuff, but not the talking parts. All right. That's all we have for right now.
Yeah. What's our next episode? Where are we going to go to next?
We're going to do video games.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Next time we're going to talk about video games that we grew up with that we just could not put down. And
probably even go into a little bit into our adult
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and so, all right, well, that's all we have. I'm going to get this up as soon as possible, and hopefully we'll get on a once a week.
A little better schedule, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, everyone, I hope you're having a great 4th of July. Yeah. Or you had a great 4th of July.
See you next time.
All right. Later.